Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode If You Could Hide to Kolob podcast. Clive, we tried to do 4 chapters in part 1. We got through 2. Here we are trying again.
Yeah, 9 chapters this week, so it's going to be hard to try and fit the rest of them into this part 2.
And I think I said last episode we're 43 to 49, but we're 43 to 52, right?
Yeah, that's right. 43, 52. There's
Holy
9
balls.
chapters. It's a lot.
Well, I've got the quote to start us off on this episode. It's from George Q. Cannon. The saints should always remember that God sees not as man sees, that he does not willingly afflict his children, and that if he requires them to endure present privation and trial, it is that they may escape greater tribulations which would otherwise inevitably overtake them. If he deprives them of any present blessing, it is that he may bestow upon them greater and more glorious ones by and by. Okay, so 43 and 44, go have a look at that episode if you haven't yet. It's a war against Zarahemna, not Zarahemla. That is the city, that is the capital. Zarahemna is a man who is the leader of the Zoramites. Now we're on 45, and we go back, with a little bit of flip-flopping here, but we go back, and this is now Helaman's words. We might just go down to verse 2. And it came to pass in the 19th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, that Alma came unto his son Helaman, and said unto him, Believest thou the words which I spake unto thee concerning these records which have been kept? And Helaman said unto him, Yea, I believe. And Alma said to him, Believest thou in Jesus Christ? Who shall come? Helaman replies again, yes, he believes everything that's been spoken. And Alma asks him one question here. Will ye keep my commandments? And Helaman answers, and he says, Yea, I will keep thy commandments with all my heart. And then so Alma returns, and this is why I'm reading, this is the final throes of Alma's life. And he's catching up with his son, and he wants to really understand what's going through his son's head. I've got a couple of reasons why that might be, but what do you think, Clive?
Well, I think he's preparing Helaman now. Like we've seen, every time someone gets prepared to receive the plates, they go through these questions of, do you believe? Sort of the worthy questions. And that's what Alma's sort of doing. He's going, all right, Helaman, you're the next one to get the plates. Are you prepared? Do you believe in this? Do you believe in that? He's going through all those steps again. So Helaman can then get the plates. And he's sort of made this covenant with his father that he is going to keep the record. He is going to preserve them. And he is going to continue to keep the commandments.
Well, that's what I was thinking. And so do you think at this stage, this is where he gives him the sword of Laban, the Liahona, the plates? Is this the ceremony where Alma, as the ecclesiastical leader, he's the prophet of this time, is he holding on to these things? And is he now handing them down to Helaman? And he's, first of all, almost giving him like a temple recommend interview that he's about to die, he's about to move on, and he needs to do this last little check-in with his son before, he can hand him over. And then when he meets God, he goes, no, I caught up with Helaman, and Helaman told me that he was going to keep the commandments. Therefore, I found him worthy to hold on to the treasures.
Yeah, that's exactly how I imagine it. I imagine this is the ceremony of the handing over of everything. These are the steps, these are the questions. And yeah, in my head as I read it, this is exactly it. Here is this, here is that, now that you're able to believe in these things.
And not to Corianton, which we know Corianton was a bit of an issue, and not to Shiblon either, but specifically to Helaman.
Well, yeah, because then he goes on to say, I have somewhat to prophesy unto thee. So then he talks about a prophecy that he's had about the falling away of the Nephites after Christ comes.
Right.
And he says to Helaman, keep this to yourself until after I'm gone. So he's entrusting Helaman with this, because what an incredible prophecy. And he's entrusting Helaman with it. Obviously he's chosen Helaman to be the next prophet. The Lord has chosen Helaman, obviously, but Alma knows that and is passing it all on. And what an incredible prophecy as well. Like Alma said, don't tell anyone until after I've gone, which is really, I don't know, odd. I guess Alma doesn't want people to go, wow, what an amazing person you are, because this isn't for me. This is something the Lord has given me, an understanding that the Lord's blessed me with.
Yeah, well, that brings me to this bit that I'm going to throw to you because I feel like you're going to know a bit more about it, or a lot more about it than me. So, the story of 45 is Alma gives, as we, the gospel according to us, he gives Helaman the treasures, gives them the prophecy of what is going to happen, and then he does this. He blesses the church, which I really like in verse 17. So we're on chapter 45. And now, when Alma had said these words, he blessed the church. Yea, all those who stand fast in the faith from that time henceforth. And when Alma had done this, he departed out of the land of Zarahemla as if to go into the land of Milik. So directly west out of Zarahemla is Milik. And it came to pass that he was never heard of more. As to his death or burial, we know not of. Thoughts?
Well, it doesn't end there. Maybe read 19 as well.
Behold, this we know, that he was a righteous man, and the saying went abroad in the church that he was taken up by the Spirit or buried by the hand of the Lord, even as Moses. But behold, the scripture saith, the Lord took Moses unto himself. And we suppose that he has also received Alma in the Spirit unto himself. Therefore, for this cause we know nothing concerning his death and burial.
Yeah, so it's referring to Moses here, and Moses, in the Bible, Moses sort of just walked off, same way Alma did, but Josephus gives us a bit of a different description of what happened to Moses. So I'm going to read from the book of Josephus right here. It says that, so Moses is speaking with Joshua and Eliezer.
So this is just to educate us on what actually happened to Moses.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So more than just what the Bible says, that he walked off and then he was buried by the hand of the Lord, is what the Bible says. So here it says, and as he was going to embrace Eliezer and Joshua, and was still discussing with them, a cloud stood over him on the sudden, and he disappeared into a certain valley. Although he wrote in the holy books that he died, which was done out of fear, lest they should venture to say that because of his extraordinary virtue he went to God. So,
what's that saying?
Josephus is basically saying that he walked into a cloud, but they wrote down that he died because people wouldn't really understand what happened to him. So we understand that. We know that Moses was actually translated. And so Alma, it only makes sense that Alma was translated. There's been multiple translations through the scriptures in a different ways. Elijah was translated. He was a chariot of fire appeared, and he got onto the chariot and went off into the clouds. Enoch, the city of Enoch, was translated. John the Beloved, it talks about in Doctrine and Covenants, section 7, that John the Beloved was also translated. The 3 Nephites talks about how they were translated as well. It just begs the question to me, what's the purpose of people being translated? So in Doctrine and Covenants 7, Daniel, it talks about how John the Beloved was translated and the reason that he was translated. In verse 1, he says, and the Lord said unto me, John, my beloved, what desirest thou? For if ye shall ask what you will, it shall be granted unto you. And I said unto him, Lord, give unto me power over death, that I may live and bring souls unto thee. So John the Beloved requested that he can continue living on so that he can preach the doctrine. The 3 Nephites that we learn later on in 3rd Nephi, same thing. They wanted to continue living on so they could preach the gospel. But Alma, it doesn't say that he wants to live on. Same with Moses, it doesn't say that they want to live on to continue to preach the gospel. So I ask the question, why can some people be translated and some people not? And Joseph Smith actually clears this up in Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith. He says that there's 2 translations. Translation obtains deliverance from the tortures and sufferings of the body, but their existence will prolong as to the labors and toils of the ministry. So there's some people that are translated so they can continue on in the ministry and to preach. And then on the other hand, those who are tortured, so those who are continually living on, not accepting deliverance receive an immediate rest from their labors. So there's those that continue on to preach the gospel, and there's those that have done so well that they can now rest. So there's translated being that they're able to have rest and be able to finally finish their work without dying.
Finally finish their work without dying. So they go into a rest because they just work so hard. They work and work and work, and then eventually God takes them into his rest so they can finally not worry about it anymore. So God, in this case, says to Alma, well, actually, you read it in the last episode, actually, where, and I'm going to bring it up, in Alma 43, in verse 1, and Alma also himself could not rest, and he also went forth, and maybe we're making this up, gospel according to you and I here, but clearly says there that he could not rest, and so in the end, God says, I'm going to take you up, and you can now rest.
Yeah.
Is that too far? Have we strung that together too far? Nothing official, but certainly what we think and where this may have taken us.
So now I guess the mantle falls to Helaman.
Yeah.
And, when the mantle fell to Elisha, after Elijah was taken up, he really panicked.
Well, he comes into struggles early though, right? So we're still in chapter 45. Let's just go to, I'll read 20, I might read 22. Although 21 is needed. For this is 21. For behold, because of their wars with the Lamanites and the many little dissensions and disturbances which had been among the people, it became expedient that the word of God should be declared among them, yea, and that a regulation should be made throughout the church. Therefore, Helaman and his brethren went forth to establish the church again in all the land, yea, in every city throughout all the land, which was possessed by the people of Nephi, and it came to pass that they did appoint priests and teachers throughout the land, all over their churches. But now this is where we get a little bit of backbiting. So verse 23, and now it came to pass that after Helaman and his brethren had appointed priests and teachers over the churches, that there arose a dissension among them, and they would not give heed to the words of Helaman to his brethren. They grew proud. They loved riches. It says they walked upright, so they were kind of a bit too big for themselves, and they kind of thought that they were better than everyone else. So it talks, Clive, I don't know, it doesn't give us another year, but this is in the 19th year. So it's obviously a very, very, very busy year for Helaman. He's going out with other people, tells us here. It specifically does tell us that he goes out, him and his brethren. They go out and they're establishing the church, whether, I don't know if they're building buildings or they're just going to synagogues that are already built, and they're establishing wards, because they're certainly calling priests and they're calling teachers, so they're establishing wards. And at a time, he bumps into people who now don't want a part of what he's got to offer. And so I wonder how long that was, because I was trying to look if it was another year, but it doesn't tell us that. Unless I've missed it somewhere, but it doesn't tell us that it was another year. So he might have been.
It says at the bottom it's 73 still.
Yes.
73 BC.
So he's just very, very busy in a short space of time. And we run into this problem.
It seems like every time there's someone new called, there's a problem. So I wonder if it's, people have this issue of a new person. That wasn't me that was called. I think I'm worthy, or I'd prefer this person. I wonder if that's the case, or Alma sort of had a hold of it, knew how to control it, but then when Helaman took over, he didn't really know. I mean, it happens every single time. Right. Every single time there's a changeover, there's a bunch of people that have an issue with it.
Okay, well, that gets us into chapter 46, and we run into this next person now called Amalickiah. And so now we get the second war of this lesson of wars. And so people are there's this people who are uprising against Helaman, and one person who's particularly labeled as strong. I think it tells us in verse 3. Now the leader of those, this is chapter 46, verse 3. Now the leader of those who were wroth against their brethren was a large and a strong man, and his name was Amalickiah. And we run into this same old problem that Amalickiah wants to be king. And this might fit in quite well to what you were saying before. You'll remember way back to Mosiah the second, not King Benjamin's dad. You'll remember back to this Mosiah, where he specifically said that there should be no king. And he specifically put in the reign of, this is where the reign of the judges start. And he put in a chief priest. And every now and then there's a bit of a civil war that pops up between this idea of having one supreme king versus what the land already have, which is almost like a panel of judges with a chief judge. Well, that I guess was Alma, perhaps is now Helaman, though I'm not sure it tells us that specifically. But there's a group of judges, and Amalickiah says, well, I don't want that, and I'm prepared to start a civil war because I want to be king and I want to take part of the land. And that's what this second war is about.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, was Amalickiah part of the original army of Moroni and his people and willing to defend? Because we've talked about so many times how there must have been so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's spread out. There's all these different lands. And I wonder if Amalickiah was sort of in his own town at the time, not really worrying about the wars, thinking, I've got this plan that I want to be king. Or if he was part of it and then he completely fell away from the truth. Because we'll go on to read that he becomes this incredibly wicked person.
Where's Zarahemna?
Zarahemna?
Yeah. Yeah. Is he doesn't die. We don't get a record that he dies. Is he just in the background now? Is he dead? I feel like we should have got some closure for what Zarahemna did.
He's made this oath that he's not going to fight, so I guess he's just retired. I don't know. With his people that made the oath, and they're just off now in their own towns, maybe.
Okay,
what more
side
can
note,
they
I
say?
guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hey, Zarahemna died because he was just so horrid.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like, give us some closure, Mormon. What are you doing to us? Okay, so Amalickiah floats around and he flatters people. Lots of people are led away. He becomes a leader. And we get a couple of little bits of commentary as well, like in verse 8. Thus we see how quick the children of men do forget the Lord their God, yea, how quickly do iniquity, and to be led away by the evil one. Yea, and we also see the great wickedness one very wicked man can cause to take place among the children of men. And then it goes back into Amalickiah. So I just thought they're almost like just two quick verses of commentary. Mormon's almost wrapping up what he's seeing and going, look at this, look how quickly people can fall away. Just giving a quick lesson, just dropping a little bit of lesson in there for us. Amalickiah wants to destroy the church. He doesn't want, he's against it. But I'm not sure he is against it as he's against the regime. He's against the idea that that he can't be king, and he's almost just poking holes in everything else and causing major, major disruption. So he goes after the gospel, which is the backbone, I guess, to the Nephite land. And so now we raise up Moroni again in our writings. We get Moroni comes back in, and we get in verse 11, and now it came to pass that when Moroni, who was the chief commander of the armies of the Nephites, had heard of these dissensions, he was angry with Amalickiah. And this is where we get this title of liberty. Verse 12, and it came to pass that he rent his coat. We'll talk about that. He rent his coat, and he took a piece thereof and wrote upon it, in memory of our God, our religion, and freedom, and our peace, our wives, and our children. And he fastened it upon the end of a pole. And he fastened on his headplate and his breastplate and his shields, and girded on his armor about his loins. He took the pole which he had on the end thereof, his rent coat, and he called it the title of liberty. And he bowed himself to the earth, and he prayed mightily unto his God for the blessing of liberty to rest upon his brethren, so long as there should be a band of Christians remain to possess the land. So Moroni takes it upon himself here to rent his coat, which I thought was quite symbolic, Clive. I don't think like this wording that he rent his coat is symbolic, I thought, of getting back to earth or getting back to your being.
The temple, when Christ died, the veil of the temple was rent in twine, and to symbolize the opening. Yeah, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm sure there's some kind of symbolism in it, but I mean,
because then other people do it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I was always stuck on the fact, because I always imagined him getting so angry at the time that he rips his clothes up, but I don't think that's the case. I think he actually just went home and ripped pieces.
Well, I think he'd
write this thing.
But I think he's symbolically doing it. That's what I think. I think he's symbolic because it makes such a point that he's symbolizing himself doing this almost like a ceremony, and then he goes and prays. Maybe someone can tell us what's more symbolic, but I just feel like it's in there for a very specific reason. And what about the term Christians? I thought
actually, I
did you get
think
to
of that a lot. Yeah, I did think of that and wonder.
It says it twice.
And I did wonder. I did look in our old Book of Mormon to see if it was in there.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
So it just made me wonder if there's a word that they use that Joseph Smith could only sort of, like not everything can be translated into the English language properly. And I wonder if it was just a word that they used that he could only think, all right, well, that's Christian. Like it could say people that follow Christ, and he's gone, well, I'll just say Christians because it makes more sense.
Let's just skip forward just a little bit. We'll just keep this episode moving along. So in 18, and he said, surely God shall not suffer that we, who are despised because we take upon us the name of Christ, shall be trodden down and destroyed until we bring it upon us by our own transgression. And when Moroni had said these words, he went forth among the people, waving the rent part of his garment, so the title of liberty, waving the rent part of his garment in the air, that all might see the writing which he had written upon the rent part, and crying with a loud voice, behold, whosoever will maintain this title upon the land, let them come forth in the strength of the Lord and enter into a covenant that they will maintain their rights and their religion, and their Lord God may bless them. And that's when people come running. People came running together with their armor, girded about their loins, rending their garments in token or as a covenant that they would not forsake the Lord their God, or in other words, if they shall transgress the commandments of God or fall into transgression and be ashamed to take upon them the name of Christ, the Lord shall rend them even as they had rent their garments. So it's got to be something more deeper than that. More deeper to that, sorry. So you imagine now Clive Moroni is literally just waltzing through town with this title of liberty, and he's declaring things. He's yelling things out as he's walking around, and people are joining him. People are standing up for themselves, standing up for their religious freedom, and they're not going to let Amalickiah just come and be the king and rip down the very fabric of their community. And I just find that, think about Moroni and the title of liberty, and this is what he's done. He's walking around and he's talking to people and he's showing people that you can stand up for yourselves and you can stand up for your religious freedom.
He mentions something that we don't know about. He mentions the writings of Jacob, the father of Joseph, changed his name to Israel. And we don't have those writings. So that's an interesting thing that they must have had in the original plates there. It says, let us remember the words of Jacob before his death. For behold, he saw that part of the remnant of the coat of Joseph, which we could talk about, the coat of many symbols in Old Testament lessons, was preserved and had not decayed. And he said, even as this remnant of garment of my son hath been preserved, so shall a remnant of the seed of my son be preserved by the hand of God. So he's sort of symbolizing that the remnant that he is torn off, this symbolism, is very similar to the one that Jacob speaks of. And he's, comparing himself to them, olden day prophets. And I think it's great because we've spoken about how Moroni, 100% sure how he is in the church, what he is, but he knows he's this great man, and talks about later that he's one of the greatest men. And now he's able to compare from the original plates about, Jacob and Joseph.
That's Moroni, and I think it would be, we can't cover absolutely everything in our podcast. That's not what the meaning of it is, but have a look through 45 and 46 and take a bit of time to understand Moroni more. It's obviously quite popular in the church, so maybe you're already across it and we don't need to cover it here. The only thing I would cover, Clive, is what about verse 40 in chapter 46? And there were some who died. So again, have a look through this yourselves. There's some who died with fevers, which at some seasons of the year were very frequent in the land, but not so much so with fevers because of the excellent qualities of the many plants and roots which God had prepared to remove the cause of diseases to which men were subject by the nature of the climate. That's very left field.
Yeah, I think it hasn't really mentioned that before, but it's it's symbolizing that the Lord, I guess, or it's showing us that the Lord has prepared things for our gain. The Adam and Eve, very much so. There was a lot in the garden that they took from the Garden of Eden that was healthy for them, that they could continue on to cure many diseases. And same with Noah when he created his own Garden of Eden. And I guess it's just showing us there that they were just like us. They had these sicknesses, but they were able to, because of the plants that had been brought and prepared for them, they were able to. But it is just sort of thrown in there.
It's weird.
It is weird. But maybe Mormon's looking for a good spot for it. It's like, how am I going to say we had some plants that we could heal us? At what point can I throw it in?
I imagine he's just woke up in the morning. He's like, I haven't told him about the plants. Put the plants in here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And then even 41, and there were many who died of old age, and those who died in the faith of Christ are happy in him, and we must needs suppose. You're right. It is thrown in there oddly because we're talking about Amalickiah and the things that he's doing.
About Moroni and this amazing
Moroni general. And then it gets back into the Amalickiah story again.
Yeah.
You're right. It is. Yeah, and there's probably someone out there that's way smarter than us that understands why this was thrown in here. But I guess to us, laymen, it's like, oh, that's odd. It's just thrown it in. I found a spot. Perfect. All right, I'm going to write it down now.
Yeah, and imagine he's just healed himself. He's like, I've got to tell him how good these plants are.
Yeah. Oh, in the future, they'll have these plants. No worries. Everyone's going to be healed all the time.
Yeah. And here's us. All right, what are we doing in chapter 47?
I really love the story of 47 because we've talked about Moroni's strategies. Now we're going to talk about Amalickiah, right? So he decides, well, this isn't for me. I'm going to go off. And he goes off into the wilderness and he actually joins up with the Lamanites. And he stirs them up to anger, as he always seems to do, against the people of Nephi. And then halfway through verse 1, insomuch that the king of the Lamanites sent a proclamation throughout all the land among his people that they should gather themselves together to go to battle against the Nephites. Right. So, they've gone, this guy's right. We've got to go to battle. Now, this is one of the most interesting stories, I think, because it's laid out in such a way that you can take this story and apply it to today. And as much time as we've got and the restraints that we have, I want to try and do that. So, there's some people that agree, and then there's some people that fear because they know what the Nephites' army is like. So there's those that fear, they run away. And the king says to Amalickiah...
Of the Lamanites.
Sorry, of the Lamanites.
The Lamanites who are scared of the Nephites, don't want to be drafted into the army, so they take off.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So they take off. And they take off, they go to a place called Mount Antipas. Do you know where that is in your map there?
I sure do. It's number 16, and 16 is northeast of Nephi, the city of Nephi.
Okay.
Where they first came.
Where they first landed?
Where they first landed, yep.
Okay, interesting. So Amalickiah takes this army that the Lamanite king has given him and says, all right, go gather these people because, we want them to be part of them. We don't want to kill them. We want them to be part of our army, okay? So I'm just going to tell the story and try and avoid reading as much as possible because we tend to read a lot. So Amalickiah, right? So this is sort of between verse 9 to 15. He takes his army and they pitch their tents at the bottom of the hill of Antipas, right? So he's got a strategy. I'm going to do it this way. Instead of just chasing after these people, this is how I'm going to do it. So they set their tent at the bottom of the hill, and he sends what he calls a secret embassy to go and speak with the leader, whose leader of the fearful Lamanites, he is Lahontai. So from now on, the fearful Lamanites I'll call Lahontai's people, and the other ones I'll call Amalickiah's people, right?
Right.
So this secret embassy, or these few men, have gone to talk to Lahontai's people, and they say, come down and speak with Amalickiah. He wants to talk to you. But Lahontai was too afraid. I don't know if he thought it was a trap or he just thought, no, there's no way. But he was too afraid to go. So then Amalickiah tries again. He sends another one. And then a third time he sends another one. And Lahontai is just not coming back down. So then on the fourth attempt, so Amalickiah goes nearly to Lahontai's camp. And he sends a message that says to Lahontai, come down, bring your guards, and surround my men with your guards. That way, they will surrender to you, and you can be in charge of my men and your men. And all I ask of you is to make me second in command.
The trap is set.
Exactly. And this sounds like a great idea to Lahontai.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be in charge. I can make the decisions then. So Lahontai said, yeah, all right, let's do that then. So Lahontai is now the chief over this huge army. He's got the people that were fearful. He's got the people that were not fearful, and they're ready. So obviously Amalickiah has an idea. So something I want to read here in verse, or actually you can read because I've been reading a lot. I've been talking a lot. So verse 17 to verse 19 of 47. Okay.
Now it was the custom among the Lamanites, if their chief leader was killed, to appoint the second leader to be their chief leader. And it came to pass that Amalickiah caused that one of his servants should administer poison by degrees to Lahontai, that he died. Now, when Lahontai was dead, the Lamanites appointed Amalickiah to be their leader and their chief commander. Amalickiah is back.
Amalickiah is now the chief, but isn't it interesting that he was poisoned by degrees? Now, I see that in a very physical way of, if he was poisoned straight away, they'd go, well, someone's poisoned him. He's dead.
Yeah.
But if you were to poison him slowly, he's got a bit sick. Maybe this is why Mormon brought it up earlier. He's got a fever and he's getting sick. People got sick all the time. Mormon mentioned it.
They've been living on top of Mount Antipas.
Exactly. So maybe he's just a bit sick and he's getting a bit sicker and eventually he dies. So poison by degrees. I think it's really interesting how it's very specific there. And you can refer that to the devil. Satan tempts us by degrees. Oh, just have a little bit of this. That's not that bad. Do this, do that. And eventually we could die, spiritually.
Right.
So I think that's really, really interesting. Even the way that Amalickiah tempts Lahontai. Oh, but you're the one in charge of this. Like Satan does the same to us. Oh, but you're in charge. Oh, just do this little thing, but you're in control. If you want to quit, you can quit. You just don't want to. That's not on me. That's on you. So continuing on, I mean, this isn't the end. So now Amalickiah has control of this huge army like he was told to by the king. So he sends servants to go off to the king and to explain that he's got this army. Now the servants bow down to the king, as the custom is then, and as they stood up, they stabbed the king and killed him. So this is the king of the Lamanites. And then they cried out that the servants of the king are the ones that killed the king. And so the servants of the king actually flee, and they flee to Jershon to live with the Antonophylehites.
The people of Ammon.
Yeah. So that's quite interesting. I mean, obviously there'd be more of a story to it. They can't not just, hey, we're afraid now. Oh, okay, come live with us. Like they must have, changed their ways and what have you. But now, the king's dead. And Amalickiah has gone, well, the servants of the king have killed him and he's absolutely wicked.
They've now taken over the city of Nephi. In verse 31, it came to pass on the morrow he entered the city Nephi with his armies and took possession. So they're just So he's now got these. Now his army's massive because he's killed Lahontai and he's killed the king of the Lamanites. He's now got a huge army and he's just waltzed in. They're not too far. They're only in Mount Antipas, and now they just stroll down to Nephi and take the place over.
That's right. Yep, exactly. So, yeah. So, well, what's the rest of Amalickiah's plan? Well, 34, and it came to pass that Amalickiah took the same servant that slew the king, and all them who were with him, and went into the queen unto the place where she sat, and they all testified unto her that the king was slain by his own servants. And they said also, they are fled. Does not this testify against thee? And thus they satisfied the queen concerning the death of the king. So many people came to her and said,
the crime has been committed. It's done. The trail has been covered over.
And now Amalickiah gets his wish, and it came to pass that Amalickiah sought the favor of the queen and took her unto him to wife, and thus by his fraud and by the assistance of his cunning servants he obtained the kingdom. Yea, he was acknowledged king throughout all the land among all the people of the Lamanites, who were composed of the Lamanites, Levites, Ishmaelites, and all the descendants of the Nephites from the reign of Nephi to the present time. So, from Amalickiah wanting to be king of the Nephites and completely being shut down, he's now devised this plan of being king of the Lamanites. And yeah, it was really smart and his strategy was really well done, but it just shows you how complete opposite he's gone because he didn't get what he wanted. And I don't think we're going to get through the rest, Daniel.
Okay, well, yeah, let's finish it there. We've been talking for quite a while, and maybe we'll come back for a part 3. I'm not sure, and finish Come Follow Me, or I'll let you read it yourselves at home. But we appreciate you tuning in for another episode. If you could hide to Kolob podcast, catch us on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. And we're really enjoying going through the Book of Mormon this year and learning so much, and yeah, really, really just enjoying ourselves. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.